Hi everyone, welcome to the Wired Homestead. Today it is finally time to get the garden going. Today I'm going to be starting onion seeds. I have Walla Walla onion, Patterson onion, and a ruby red onion. Every year I hope my onions are going to turn out better than the year before. This is no exception. Last year I didn't actually even get my onions in the ground. They stayed in the little trays that I planted them in all summer long. So I got a little bit distracted by having a baby in the middle of summer. And I went into the hospital a little before that. I had to stay about a week and a half in the hospital before she was born. And it was just chaos before that. So I never really got my onions in the ground, which was a shame because I was really hoping that last year would be the year that I get these beautiful onions, and it just wasn't. Fingers crossed for this year. I have these trays that I'm going to plant the onions in. I'm going to put my dirt in this. This is actually for a microgreen tray. It's a deep, what would be considered a deep microgreen tray. And then I have just a standard 10 by 20 tray underneath of it. I have 3 of these. One for each type of onion. The dirt I'm using is actually just garden dirt that I got from a local supplier. I got a whole bunch of dirt last year. I think I got 6 or 7 yards, something like that, from a local company that does bulk garden soil. But I got that in the hopes of having this nice, big, beautiful garden that I didn't get to have. So I still have so much of it left, and I'm going to use some of that to start my seeds in instead of a seed starting mix. Usually I would use a seed starting mix, or sometimes I just use sifted potting soil, or sometimes I don't even sift the potting soil and then I just use the regular potting soil. But I have so much of this that I'm going to give it a try and see what happens. I'm going to be mixing it with some vermiculite and some perlite. I bought this the other day. Normally I like to use vermiculite, but when I was at the store, I just found perlite, so I bought that. And then I found the vermiculite in my garage. So I'm gonna go ahead and use that too. I'll use this first. Looks like I've probably already used some of it at 1 year. I don't recall when I used it, but apparently I've used it before because it's already open, but it looks like it's mostly full. I'm just gonna take this vermiculite and dump some in and mix it in. And the reason I'm adding this is just to make the soil a little lighter so it's not so heavy. And it'll help with moisture retention and drainage as well. And I'm just gonna dump some in. There's no formula or anything that I'm following. I'm just going to dump it in until I decide that I have a good amount. Here it is. You can see all the vermiculite in there. I've never used this soil for starting seeds, so I don't know if it's gonna work right or not. I guess we'll find that out together. I haven't watered this down at all. I'm just gonna dump it in my seed tray. Normally when I start onions, I actually start them in leftover fruit or like lettuce type containers. I just like to reuse those, but I don't actually have any at the moment, so I'm going to use this instead. I'm just going to fill it mostly to the top. go. I'm going to take my first onion, the Patterson. My little one is playing in the background, and apparently something is super interesting. So I'm just going to take these seeds and spread them on top. I'm not making sure they're spaced out a certain amount. I'm just sprinkling and hoping that they're spaced out enough that they'll be fine. And then I'm going to just lightly cover the seeds. Now these seeds don't need to be like buried deep or anything. In fact, you don't want to, or they might have trouble germinating. So I'm just putting a light layer of soil on top. Then I'm just going to repeat that for the other two onion types. There we go. Next up is the Walla Walla. This only has 75 seeds, so I don't even think I need the whole tray for this. No. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put both the Ruby Red and the Walla Walla in this tray. I didn't plan for that, but I think it's going to be the best use of this tray space. Now when they sprout, there will be kind of this middle section that will have both Ruby Red and Walla Walla. So I'm not going to necessarily know which one is which when they sprout, but that's okay. My onions are basically all getting planted in the same place, and I will know when they start to bulb, not if, when they start to bulb. I'll be able to tell which is which, and that's fine for me. Now it's very possible, since this soil was outside, that there are weed seeds in it. That's okay too. I'll be able to tell what's a weed seed and what's an onion seed. Onions are pretty distinctive, so I'm not too concerned about that either. I don't have enough to fill a whole other tray for the Ruby Reds, nor do I really think I need a whole tray. I did a whole tray of Patterson because this is supposed to be a very good storage onion. Now, I can't speak to that because I have yet to actually grow a decent onion, but I picked Patterson because in my area here in Western Washington, it's a very good variety if you want to have a storage onion, which I do. So Patterson is what I went with. Walla Walla is wonderfully tasty and we use it a lot. It's a very lovely sweet onion, but it doesn't store at all. You might be able to keep it for a couple weeks, but it's not going to be a good long-term storage onion like the Patterson is. So that's why I have them both. The Walla Walla is great for fresh eating, and then over the winter when they've all been harvested and we've used them, then I can switch to the Patterson and I'll have those available in storage. That's the idea. Now, the Ruby Red, I have actually never grown before, but it's supposed to be delicious and it's supposed to be able to store up to 5 months. So I'm really hoping that's the case. I talked with some other gardeners in my area, and it sounds like as far as red onions, a lot of them go for the ruby red. It sounds like I picked a good choice as far as red onions go. So to finish this off, I'm going to take a bottle of just regular old water and spritz it down. And this is how I'm going to water the seeds in. Now the soil will have already been a little bit wet from sitting outside, and it has been quite rainy, so it's not dry. But this will just make sure that the seeds are moist and are able to germinate. So that's super important. So the spray bottle is a lot more gentle than if you were to use like a watering can or something else that kind of dumps a much heavier stream of water onto the seeds. It kind of moves the seeds around and disturbs them, which right now probably wouldn't be a huge deal, but as the seeds start to germinate, it's going to create problems. Once they get a little bit bigger and you know their roots are down into the soil a little bit, then they'll be fine. And that's what I have this for. So this tray underneath of it is where I will put the water once the seeds germinate and they get, you know, a couple inches tall, and I know that they have developed a pretty decent root system. So I like to bottom water plants as much as possible to avoid fungal issues like dampening off. So I have had problems with it in the past, and living in a very moist area, it's pretty common. Last but not least is the label. Patterson. Even if you think you're going to remember, or like me and have a video that tells you what's in each one, you're still going to forget. I have thought so many times, like, I'm going to remember what's in here, and I don't. With this one over here being half and half, I will never remember which half is which. And I'm kind of at a point right now where I hope that I got it right. I guess it's a 50-50 shot. Voila. Voila. And ruby red. Sure, this side was Walla Walla, and this side was ruby red. Here we are, first seeds of 2025 in the dirt. That's super exciting. I always wait for this time of year. In fact, I'm the nerd who has spent time doing seed inventory. So I now have an entire spreadsheet of all the different seeds I have and about how many I have. That way I know what I can plant, how many of each I can plant, if I need more of something or what. I'm that person. I'm gonna leave these here in the window corner in my house for now. They'll stay plenty warm here in my living room, and I don't have my actual seed station set up yet, which is fine. These don't need any light to germinate, so they'll be fine sitting here. Even if they did, they have plenty from the windows. But once they start growing, these windows will not provide enough. No matter how much light you get out of that window, it just isn't enough in my area to really give the plants what they need to thrive. So once they start germinating, I'll make sure to get my grow lights set up and get them on a shelf so that they're able to get the light that they need. And I will probably start them off with around 9 to 10 hours of light per day. Now, to bulb, these are long day onions. Since I live in the northern part of the US, I need to grow long day onions, and that's what these are. That means they are not going to start bulbing until they get about 14 hours of daylight per day. And at this point, I don't want them to get any idea that they need to start bulbing. So I want to keep the daylight less than 14 hours. So I'm gonna start them off 9 to 10 hours. And then as it gets a little bit closer to when they go out, I'll probably bump it up to more like 11 or 12. And then when they go outside, that should about roughly be how much daylight they're getting at about the time they go outside. So that's my plan. We'll see. Hopefully it works. In the past, I've made the mistake of giving them too much daylight when they're seedlings, and I think that's one of my areas that I've gone wrong with onions. So I'm going to try it this way and see if it makes any difference. If you're curious to know if it does, or if you want to follow along, make sure you hit that subscribe button. So I will show you as these things grow how they're doing, and we'll see if by the end of the season, or I guess July-ish, if I am actually successful in growing onions this year. Fingers crossed. Maybe say a prayer for me. I would appreciate it. But I thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you next time.